Okay, so today's discussion will be on the first part of the information retrieval system, that is indexing. Note that in the last class we have discussed the ways of searching for a term using grep, in which case we saw that it is basically performing a search which is linear in nature, and given a fairly sized collection, it is not actually possible to perform a linear search. I mean, it is possible, but it would take so much time that the effectiveness of an IR system, information retrieval system, would not be realized using a linear search. So we need improved mechanism or some advanced techniques to actually perform the search quickly. So the first step in order to perform a quick search is basically index the collection. So in the last class we have discussed regarding the use of inverted index and how to create one. Today we'll be looking at that from the practical perspective. So before starting with the actual indexing part, let's have a recap of the different types of memory that are available in a computer. So the computer system very broadly can be broken up in two memory parts. First is called primary memory, which is basically the RAM that we are using. The RAM are basically the capacity, or basically the execution speed of RAM is very fast, but it has certain drawbacks as well, like limited capacity. As compared to a hard disk, the RAM would be maybe, I mean, more than say 100 times slower than the capacity of a hard disk. It is also volatile, right? If I if I store something in the primary memory, that is RAM, after the termination of the program, or after the termination or after the power off of the machine, it will be gone. And also primary memories are very expensive. The second major type of memory is basically the secondary memory, which is basically the hard disk, either hard disk or SSD, solid state drive. The only problem with solid hard disk is basically, or the secondary memory in general, is basically it is too slow as compared to a primary memory. Otherwise, the other four drawbacks of a primary memory is actually taken care of by the secondary memory. That is, the secondary memory will be having almost unlimited size. As we know, now we can purchase 1 TB, 2 TB, 3 TB, 5 TB hard disk, as compared to the primary memory, which is still, I mean, for a desktop, for regular use, the capacity will be at most, you will be getting a 16 GB space or a 16 GB RAM. You can actually purchase more RAMs to make it, say, 64 GB. Beyond that is actually too expensive, and your motherboard would not support anything more than this. As compared to that, we can actually start with a hard disk of say 1 TB, which is 1 terabyte. Note that 1000 GB is actually 1 TB. So we can actually extend it up to say 5 TB and beyond that. How beyond that? Basically, we have in our system, we have USB ports. We can actually plug in external hard disks as well, together with the internal hard disks. They are non-volatile. That means if we store something in the secondary memory, it will be remaining almost forever, until and unless it is basically the hard disk is breaking up, maybe for some hardware failure. And it is also cheap in comparison to the price of a random access memory or a RAM. So if we compare the four aspects, the only problem with secondary memory is it is too slow. But other, in terms of capacity, the power of storing the information and the expense, it is much more user friendly or user acceptable than a primary memory. Note that this is just the basic two memory information, or two types of memory that are there in the computer. There are certain other memories as well, like cache memory, which is basically a part in the in your processor, which is the actual part where the computations are happening. Together with that, you might have heard of another type of memory, which is called a virtual memory. Virtual memory is basically a concept using which the programs are actually running. Essentially, virtual memory can be considered as a combination of this primary memory as well as the cache memory. So, the programs that we have written so far, all of the variables that we are creating in those programs, such as say int a or say float f, everything together with any data structure, say any stack or queue that we are creating, everything is basically being created in this primary memory. Everything. So from int, say if we declare a structure with name say stack, if I declare a pointer to that slack, say slack star s, all these are actually being created in this primary memory, which means it will be gone, because after the after execute after the power of the system, it will be basically reset. And another thing is, it is of limited capacity. As you might have seen that whenever we are starting a system or a machine, there are certain processes which starts automatically, which is basically the parts or the programs that are responsible for making the operating system run smoothly. Together with that, if I say launch the Firefox browser, or say Adobe Notebook or Adobe Acrobat Reader or something else, every program that we are starting, it will be basically taking up some memory space, basically the primary memory space. So considering that, if I write a program which is taking up a lot of memory, it will be basically at some time it might actually overflow the primary memory, which is RAM. So basically, if I create one, say, so I hope you can actually understand this, you can remember this statement. Say int star a equals to malloc, say 1000 into size of int. Feel free to ask any question that you have. So just to give you a recap, so this is basically I am allocating a memory of size 100 of integer type. Basically what I am doing is I am creating an array of integer type having 100, sorry, not 100 but 1000 indices. So this is basically this. So why I am not actually typecasting it, I guess you can you remember, because malloc is returning a void pointer. A void pointer can actually be assigned, can actually be set to the particular pointer of the type into which it is being assigned to. So that's why int star is not actually necessary here, but for the sake of completeness, you can actually put that here as well. So this type of an array that we are creating, or a statically created array, all of them are basically taking up the memory in the primary memory space. Now I guess there is some question or something that you have written. Very good. That's a very good question. The question that Amarjit was asking is, there is another type of a memory that is called swap memory. Where exactly is it coming into the picture? So let me give you just a small discussion regarding that. So let's consider this is the random access memory. And let's consider that it is of capacity, say 4 GB. Although it is too small in 2022, but let's consider that it's of size 4 GB. Now, if you start the computer, you will be seeing that more than 1 GB space is already occupied by the operating system, right? So maybe you end up with say 2.5 GB of space for your use. Let's say you start, say, I don't know, say Counter-Strike. So you start playing Counter-Strike, you launch Counter-Strike. Together with that, in the background, you have started playing, say, Windows Media Player. They are actually taking some memory. Together with that, you have kept your Firefox open to basically browse, maybe keep an eye in the CS4201. Together with that, you are playing the CS and listening to some song. Now, all this are basically taking up the memory here. Now, the obvious question is, we know the Counter-Strike or the Firefox, this can take a lot of memory. Of course, Winamp is a very lightweight software. That's why I'm not considering it for this example. This takes around 1.2 GB of space if you are using a older version. More than this if you are using a newer version of the game. Firefox depends on the number of tabs that you have opened. Depending on that, it will be taking, say, X GB of memory. If you have if you kept open many tabs, it will be a large value. Now, of course, the summation of all this could be much greater than 2.5 GB, which is the free space in the RAM. Now, what operating system used to do in this case is basically it swaps certain part of the memory into the hard disk. So if I just draw a picture of a hard disk, very naive picture. So it will be basically storing certain part of the running program, or not the running program, but particularly the idle programs, some memories, it will be swapping from here to here. This is basically in a memory space in the hard disk that is called swap memory. In this swap memory, the parts from the RAM will be swapped in to accommodate new processes. Now note that, say, in this case, some tab information will be, if it is running sort of space, it will be basically, the operating system will be basically swapping some memory space which was assigned to certain tabs of Firefox, as it is not actually in the working state right now. It will be swapped back into the hard disk. And whenever you will be switching back to Firefox to that tab, it will be basically swapping it back. So it is basically swap out and then swap in. And while swapping in, it will be again swapping out certain memory spaces from the RAM into the swap memory. Okay. So another thing, together with this, another thing I want to discuss here, not actually completely discuss, but give you some thoughts to think yourself, is you have seen the option of hibernation, right? So what exactly happens if we hibernate a system, and what exactly happens if we make the system into a standby mode? So what exactly how exactly the random access memories are handled when we adopt these two approaches? Think this a little bit at your end. We are deviating from the actual discussion. So I hope, Amarjit, you got the answer regarding where exactly this swap memory is standing. It is basically a part of the hard disk or the secondary memory, which is particularly allotted for taking care of this kind of a situation.